Hello YouTubers, this is Gold Standard 00924 coming at you with another video. So this is going to be a continuation of my SummerSlam archival reviews once again. And I'm going to fast forward a couple years into the late 1990s. This is particular SummerSlam is from the year of 1998. So basically by this point, the Attitude Era has been in full swing. Stone Cold had won the WWF title from Shawn Michaels and really kick-starting the Attitude Era, and as well as Stone Cold being the franchise of the WWF that year. And Stone Cold's popularity skyrocketed. I mean, I remember he was like in a lot of talk shows, and he appeared in shows like Celebrity Deathmatch for those that remember that show. Yeah, so he was like a recurring character, and Celebrity Deathmatch was just it was like a parody of having two random celebrities that were relevant at the time, and then they had them square off. Yeah, it's kind of like the precursor to like one of those creative wrestler, like one of those CAW leagues they call it. Yeah, so Celebrity Deathmatch is something along those lines, and it uses a lot of claymation. Um, and so Stone Cold was really popular, like I said, and he was appearing in a lot of various TV shows. So yeah, his popularity really skyrocketed by the end of the '90s. Um, yeah, so basically, getting back to the SummerSlam stuff. Yeah, there were about 8 matches on the card, and it was a pretty tremendous pay per view. One of the best WWE WWF build-ups. They really advertised this pay per view like really heavily during this time. Um, they had like a lot of promos and commercial ads for it. There was like a famous promo hyping up Stone Cold versus Undertaker, which they entitled it "Highway to Hell." And yeah, that was named after the official theme song to this pay per view, which was sung by ACDC. So yeah, so the promo was actually very significant, and you might notice some of the footage from that music video that were incorporated into Stone Cold and the Undertaker's entrance themes. The Titron. Um, I apologize for that interruption there. So getting back, Stone Cold versus Undertaker was the main event for this pay per view, and they had fought a couple of times even before then, but this time, Stone Cold was an already established main eventer, and Undertaker was the veteran. So yeah, this was actually a pretty much one of those big marquee matches, and they really hyped that up pretty well. Um, and SummerSlam, by this point, like I said about the Attitude Era coming in. So yeah, I really enjoyed this show, and I even mentioned like the past two pay-per-views that I've done for SummerSlam, from the the Rock and Wrestling Hulk Hogan time period. Yeah, and some of those shows were at least somewhat bearable, but they didn't really like captivate me as much compared to this show. Now it may sound pretty biased because I actually grew up during this time period, so I would give a little more in depth to it, and really share my experience with you viewers out there. So yeah, so without further ado, I'm just gonna get started with this pay per view review here. So the opening match we have, to open up the show was the European title, and D'Lo Brown was the champion going in, and defends the belt against Val Venus. So this was actually a pretty technically paced match, really. D'Lo Brown, was a part of the Nation of Domination, and he won the European title from Triple H. During his program with The Rock, and The Rock ended up costing Triple H to lose that European title. So D'Lo Brown, won the European title as part of the Nation of Domination. And Val Venus had debuted a little after WrestleMania 14 with a couple of big net promos. So yeah, he was really over during that time. With that he was like the ladies' man sort of personality that he had. He was always come out of the crowd and just ask just basically say hello, ladies. And then he would make a lot of these subliminal, perverted catchphrases that he would spew out. This match was a pretty slow paced match. It did get a little boring at times, but it was an okay match really. But it's not like one of my favorites. I would look back over and over. I mean, with the European title, it just wasn't really a belt that you can really say that it's just as prestigious as the Intercontinental title because the European title there wasn't really a lot of significance to be honest, and it was kind of a WWF's answer to the television title that WCW had. So in retrospect, there wasn't really a particular purpose for the European title. But I mean, they had like British Bulldog winning it, and then after that, the belt just wasn't the same. I don't know, man. But unfortunately, this match ended in a disqualification when Val Venus used that chest protector that D'Lo Brown was wearing. And basically that chest protector, D'Lo Brown wore during his one of his earlier singles runs, because they did this kayfabe storyline where like the shoot fighter Dan DeBee Severn actually basically broke his body, so D'Lo Brown ended up having to wear a chest protector just to kind of protect his chest from prevent it from being injured. So he actually used to wear that chest protector during his his earlier WWF run. So like I said, the match ended in disqualification when Val Venus used the chest protector to the advantage. So the referee just basically called it disqualification, and then D'Lo Brown retains the European title since DQs titles can't change hands. And Val Venus ended up beating up the referee afterwards. So I mean, this match, it was an okay match, but it was just kind of really there, really. Probably one of the longest European title matches. I mean, I can't really think of a European title match that was anywhere longer than 10 minutes. Correct me if I'm wrong there. So it was an okay match, really. Nothing to really write home about. The second match was actually a 4-on-3 handicap match, and it's between these two factions of the Oddities and Kai and Tai. And yes, Kai and Tai did in fact start off as a stable in the WWF, and it wasn't until later years when they were reduced to a tag team with Taka, Michinoku, and Funaki. This match wasn't very long. It did receive a big crowd pop, crowd reaction for Insane Clown Posse, who contributed to the entrance music of the Oddities. So I think this match could have been a solid opener instead of the European title match. I mean, it wasn't like all that like spectacular in terms of match quality, because basically this was more of an entertainment match, really. But it was pretty fun, just to see the Oddities and doing their thing, and Kai and Tai, being the Japanese clique that they were. There isn't really much to discuss about the match other than the fact that the Oddities, they were just a bunch of, they were really huge, enormous wrestlers. One of those members happened to be Earthquake in disguise. I think he was Golga, which was, like I said, was actually yeah, he was one. I believe he was Earthquake, but anyway, the oddities, were like this, this big clown stable that they had. Um, so I mean, the oddities ended up beating up Kai and Tai. Not a very long match, but it was still pretty fun for what it was. Even though Kai and Tai got jobbed out, WWE seems to have like a reputation of treating Asian wrestlers like jokes. But I don't know, but I didn't mind this match too much. And then we have Hair versus Hair. This is between X Pac and Jeff Jarrett. I actually really like this match, and I mean X Pac, was a part of DX, and he was in the program with Jeff Jarrett, and the loser of the match has to get their hair shaved or their hair cut for that matter. So yeah, I really think these two guys could really gel well together. And there was a couple moments where I believe X Pac went for X Factor, and then Jeff Jarrett kicked out, and then you had Jeff Jarrett's bodyguards, which were basically a repackaged version of the Godwins, and they called themselves Southern Justice. Yeah, so they were like a tag team, under that, as Jeff Jarrett's bodyguards, like I mentioned. They weren't around for very long. Um, and basically X Pac won when he clubbed Jeff Jarrett with his own guitar, and basically won the match. Yeah, so I really like this match, and even the ending where like half the WF roster were coming out and trying to restrain Jeff Jarrett as X Pac shaves Jeff Jarrett's hair, and even the New Age Outlaws also came out as well. So yeah, so I really enjoyed this match, and X Pac, I don't think a lot of people give credit where credit's due to him. He was a pretty underrated worker, and I guess Jeff Jarrett as well, and even those two wrestlers kind of get a lot of flack, but for what it was, I mean, I really enjoyed this match, and yeah, so I think I pretty much had what I had to say. um, yeah, so a pretty good match there. And then we have a mixed tag team match. We have Mark Marrow and Jacqueline taking on Edge and Sable. So basically, this was pretty much a culmination of a feud between Sable and Marrow, because if you think about it, around WrestleMania 14, Sable was previously Mark Marrow's valet, and in real life they were actually married at one point. So Sable and Marrow were part of a tag team, at WrestleMania 14, and even though they won the match, Mark Marrow begins to envy Sable because how over Sable was, as opposed to Mark Marrow, who feels very second fiddle. So eventually, Mark Marrow and Sable part ways, and so Mark Marrow brings in Jacqueline, who came in from WCW managing Harlem Heat, and so Jacqueline comes in, and basically they formed a little partnership there. So Sable, in fact, was actually part of the Oddities at one point, and instead of bringing in one of the Oddities to tag with her, she brings in Edge, who had recently debuted around this time, and Edge, we all know where he went, where he, how big he would end up becoming. So yeah, so Edge was coming off, really, just as the new fresh guy, and he was picked as Sable's tag partner at the last moment. So yeah, so this was actually a pretty fun mixed tag match, and eventually Edge and Sable end up winning that match. Yeah, so this was a pretty good match, I would say. I don't know how to elaborate from here on out, but Mark Marrow was kind of watering down, and I believe he ended up leaving the company by the end of the year. And Jacqueline and Sable kind of continued their feud, and then Sable beat Jacqueline to win the women's title after during a tournament, I believe, and they were bringing back the women's title. So Sable beat Jacqueline a couple months afterwards at Survivor Series. So yeah, so this was actually a pretty good match, I would say. So I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. Then we have is a Lions Den match between Ken Shamrock and Owen Hart. So basically, this was a feud that stemmed back sometime after the April '98 In Your House, and basically Owen Hart had lost the match to Triple H in a rematch for the European title. And then, there was like a tag match, where Owen teamed with Ken Shamrock, taking on two members of the Nation of Domination. And, before the match started, Owen Hart turned on Ken Shamrock. And, the whole nation started joining in with Owen Hart and beating up Ken Shamrock. So, Shamrock got taken out of action for a little while. And then Shamrock also won King of the Ring. And then afterwards, he, reprised his feud with Owen Hart. And then they had like this, they were fighting inside Stu Hart's dungeon at Fully Loaded. And, Owen Hart won that match. So, yeah, so this is basically a feud that has been going on since the spring. And this kind of really culminated into a match that, Ken Shamrock stipulated, which is the Lions Den. And, these guys, I mean, it was a pretty unusual gimmick match at the time. I mean, you wonder why WWE never really did a Lions Den match after Ken Shamrock left the company. But this one, I'm not too familiar with MMA, I would say, but I'll admit it that. But for what it was, they made the best out of this gimmick match. And it was a pretty short but solid, sweet match. Owen Hart using the cage to its advantage. Shamrock, being as over as he was during that time. So, so Ken Shamrock beat Owen Hart in that Lions Den match when, Owen tapped to Ken Shamrock's ankle lock. And also Dan Severn served as the special guest referee, I believe, or no, he was I believe he was an outside enforcer, but yeah, he was involved in the match in some form, and Shamrock and Severn were having some confrontation that they had, but basically his main feud was Owen Hart, so Shamrock did defeat Owen Hart and pretty much putting an end to their feud, so. Yeah, so it was a pretty solid match, I would say. I can't really complain too much, but it's definitely one of those gimmick matches that WWE just didn't really do a whole lot afterwards. And then we have is the Hardcore Handicap match for the tag titles, and the New Age Outlaws taking on Mankind. Now originally this was supposed to be a regular tag team hardcore match where Mankind and Kane. They were the tag team champions going in. And basically, Kane was believed to have no-showed. So this was made into a handicap match. So this is actually a pretty fun match. It wasn't very long, though. So, but it was pretty cool. Just, the crowd pops and how over the New Age Outlaws were at the time. Mankind, had recently came off of that infamous Hell in a Cell match with the Undertaker, so why Mankind managed to, or Mick Foley still managed to wrestle afterwards. It's in another hardcore style match, but I'll admit, Mick Foley did have a lot of guts and fortitude there. So basically, New Age Outlaws pretty much annihilated Mankind. They did like a double team powerbomb on the steel chairs. They were utilizing all the objects that were under the ring, and even maybe at ringside and within the ring itself. And basically it took a double team pile driver on one of the tag title belts for the New Age Outlaws to win back the tag titles. So yeah, so this is actually it's a pretty. It was short though, I'll admit, but it was still pretty fun. Not because just to see someone getting beat up so bad, but just just the atmosphere, the crowd, and that's really the main component. Yeah, so the New Age Outlaws won back the tag titles, and then after the match, Kane appeared from the dumpster, and then he New Age Outlaws actually put Mankind in the dumpster, and then Kane just annihilated him with the sledgehammer. Yeah, so Kane just popped out just under mysterious circumstances. So yeah, so it was still pretty fun just for that particular moment, not just because of the actual match quality. And then we get to our double main event. We have the ladder match for the Intercontinental title. So The Rock defending his IC title against Triple H. So yeah, so when I watched this match, it was really hard to believe, Triple H, being the babyface and The Rock being the heel. So I was so used to the other way around when during their 2000 feud where The Rock was the good guy and Triple H being the sadistic villain that a lot of people associate with when it comes to Triple H's character. But this is back when they were basically mid-carders during this time, and that feud kind of stems back even before. Yeah, so this is actually a really good ladder match. Just a lot of brawling, which is kind of what you expect during the Attitude Era. You saw Triple H doing a baseball slide on the Rock onto the ladder. Basically just trying to annihilate each other. Using the weapons. You saw Triple H whacking the Rock with a steel chair. Especially when The Rock has that ladder on top of him, and Triple H was just smacking the ladder, with the chair. So there was some pretty cool moments there. I think Mark Henry, who so he accompanied The Rock since they were both part of the Nation. So yeah, Mark Henry at one point actually threw some powder on Triple H and blindsiding him, and they also played up prior to it was on Sunday Night Heat, where Triple H actually had his leg somewhat injured, or his knee injured because of The Rock. Nailed Triple H with the belt on the knee. Yeah, so they were kind of playing up a little more of trying to plant some seed of doubt that Triple H may not possibly win the IC title. But this is a really great match, and China low blowed The Rock and allowing Triple H to win the Intercontinental title afterwards. Yeah, so the Nation of Domination and DX. This was pretty much the finale of this feud, and they had Rock turning face afterwards for a bit. And eventually the Nation started breaking up at the time. So yeah, so Rock had a little babyface run before joining up with Vince and Shane and the Corporation, becoming the first, winning the WWF title for the first time. So the Nation and DX feud, just a really hot feud during that time. And I know they were doing this whole, there was also another faction war in WCW with the NWO Wolfpack and the Hollywood stuff. I mean, but the Nation and DX feud, that also happened during that time. So I thought it was a better feud. Seeing two future up and comers, shining in this match, and I think it benefited a lot more in the long run as opposed to what was going on with the Wolfpack and the Hollywood stuff, which was which is kind of silly looking back since we all they basically reformed afterwards. But I apologize if I was rambling about something else. But back to Triple H and The Rock. I really enjoyed this match, and I mean, it's just really that great. So I don't know what I was gonna say beyond that. And then we have the main event. We have the WF Champion Stone Cold defending the belt against the Undertaker. Yeah, so this really was a really great match, and they really built this up pretty nicely. It goes back around, I want to say Over the Edge, when Undertaker was involved in the Austin Dude Love match, and Undertaker was the special guest enforcer, and helping Stone Cold winning the WF title. Winning and retaining the WF title. And then there was a bit of foreshadowing going on as the months progressed, and Stone Cold had his thing with Undertaker's brother Kane, and they had that first blood match, and Undertaker interfered in the match, hoping to help Stone Cold, but then he accidentally whacked Stone Cold with the steel chair, and so Kane ended up winning the WF title, and basically Stone Cold wanted it back the next night. And then I believe Stone Cold and Undertaker won the tag titles for a little bit, and then they dropped it back to Kane and Mankind. So they were basically planting the seeds of that even farther back before King of the Ring, but this all culminated into a big blockbuster match for SummerSlam. So like I said, I really enjoyed this match. It was a little sloppy in some places. I think it was like a moment where Undertaker tried to go for a choke slam on Stone Cold from the apron, and it looked like he was about to lose grip. And also Undertaker did everyone remember that spot where Undertaker did that top rope leg drop on the Stone Cold through announce table. But even this was there were some sloppy moments here and there, but it was still a pretty good match, and the crowd atmosphere, like I mentioned, because it was taking place in Madison Square Garden. So when you have a crowd like that, obviously most of the time you might have a pretty solid to good to great show. And Stone Cold countered the Undertaker's old school signature move, and then went for a Stone Cold Stunner to beat the Undertaker, to retain the WF title. So after that match, Stone Cold and Undertaker, Undertaker awarded the WF title over to Stone Cold, showcasing a sign of mutual respect. And Kane also came out towards the end, and watched as Stone Cold was celebrating with the WF title, and that's basically how the show ended. So this is, like I said, SummerSlam 1998, one of my favorite SummerSlam pay-per-views, and just the build-up, and the attendance, and the crowd atmosphere was just really enormous, and and just one of the best SummerSlam build-ups in in WF history, WWE history, what have you. But so it was just a really kick-ass show, I will say. And I also, with getting to AC/DC, Highway to Hell, it just really got you pumped. Just looking forward to the pay-per-view, and some of the marquee matches going into this event. Man, so it was really one of the earlier cases of a time when WWF started using licensed music themes, because before they used a lot of instrumental production music, but then it wasn't until you get to around this time period, WWF started, WWE also started using official licensed mainstream songs, And Highway to Hell, to my knowledge, was the first of that kind, and it's something that WWE's been commonly using ever since. Using a lot of popular music in some form. So yeah, so if you think about it, SummerSlam '98 did set the standard for having an official theme song, and AC/DC's Highway to Hell was a prime example of that. So yeah, like I said, SummerSlam '98, just a really spectacular pay-per-view. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. Um, yeah, so that's really all my thoughts on SummerSlam '98. So leave a comment down below, what you thought about this pay-per-view, and just let me know what you guys think. And till next time, this is the Gold Standard Caesar 924 signing out.